Hi, Gay DeRusso here with the Majestic Rider, here to give you some tips on winter riding. Ever notice that your horse is more active in the winter? You might describe it as frisky, he seems to buck more, he's acting up more on trail when you're going out with the other horses, he seems to be spooky and more alert, and even the calm older horses can act up. There's a couple reasons why. So in the winter, sometimes people don't realize it, but their horses usually are not moving around as much as they do in the spring and the summer. They're trying to conserve their energy to provide heat for their body. Sometimes they're not regulating correctly because they have blankets on and they're in their stall or they're out in their paddock. They might just be standing there instead of moving around as they usually do. Found this with a couple of studies. When they studied horses in the winter, including in Iceland, they noticed that the horses weren't moving around as much as they do in the spring and the summer. So many of us also don't want to go to the barn in the winter or when it's rainy and cold because it's not as comfortable for us either. So the horses that were normally getting worked a fair amount now are not working as much. And sometimes we don't realize it until we really think about it. So in the summer, most of us will ride our horses anywhere from 5 to 6 days a week on the trail, which is a hard workout. But when the weather's bad, sometimes your trail rides are very short or they're just up and down the road. So the horses aren't getting a workout like they usually get. They're not using as much energy when they're in the arena working. Most of you will notice that when you're working your horse in the winter, they won't get that sweaty. So the work that they're provided during the winter isn't as much. And so we have to consider that when we're going to ride them. So they, again, with the wind and the cold, in their instincts with predators around them, there's not as much food. So they have to be more alert because if there are predators, they're going to be more likely to be eaten. So with that, they're on higher alert and may be a little bit more jumpy. Again, that's in their instincts. And so we kind of have to deal with that as well. So what I recommend with your winter riding, either round pen, lunge, or run your horse around before you ride them. Make sure that you get some of that extra energy out. You might have to change their feeding schedule and make sure they're not getting as much carbohydrates or sugars in their food. You might have to cut alfalfa out in the winter since that can tend to make your horse hotter. You might have to cut its grain or change the grain that it's getting so it doesn't give your horse as much energy. And then again, work it out before you ride it. Make sure that it's calm. Remember, if you haven't ridden the horse the day before, or you haven't been out on a really hard trail ride, in other words, hours like you might do in the summer, you're going to have to get some of that extra energy out before you ride the horse. And that means when you run it around, lunge it, or round pend it, you want to make sure that horse is tired before you get on, that he no longer wants to canter, he no longer wants to buck, he no longer wants to rear up, because you're trying to make sure that when you get on the horse's back, he's not as reactive. So again, winter riding versus summer riding is totally different. They're going to be more energetic in the winter. The horses won't have worked as much. And so you're going to have to take more time to prepare the horse and make sure he's safe before you get on his back. Also, you might not have been riding with your friends as much. You might have done more alone time riding on the trails or in the arena because your friends don't want to come out in the cold. So when you put the horses together and go out on the trail and they haven't been in a while, that can also bring more excitement and it gives them more mental status of being in a herd, and that can also make your horses more reactive. So if the horse has not been out in a while, again, I recommend you work it pretty hard before you ride it. You might prefer just to ride with one person or yourself instead of going in a larger group, which can make the horse more reactive as well. And again, if the horse is just reacting to everything, it's much better and safer to get off, walk back, and then maybe ride it at the barn or work it some more at the barn than risk getting hurt. And then the next time you go to ride it, prepare it better and maybe ride with less people that time. If you've just gotten a new horse and they're trying to drag you out in the trail and it's winter and it's windy and the horse is reactive, it's best just to say no. Never feel bad and never let them pressure you into doing something you're not ready for or the horse is not ready for. When that happens, usually there's an accident or it's a bad ride for the rider and for the horse, or a bad experience. So, best just to say no, stay in the arena, wait until you're more confident, the horse is calmer, and the horse has been worked well before you go with people. And I know it's really hard when you're going out on a ride and you're going with Joey and he invites Susie and then they go, "Oh, is that okay with you?" And they're both standing there looking at you. You just tell them, "You know what? Thanks. I was gonna, go riding with you guys, but I just don't feel up to it today. And I think I'm gonna stay in the arena and work on some things like shoulder in and leg yielding." Other things you can do to work your horse in the winter to wear them out is work over cavaletti poles. You can work on their canter over poles, but poles make the horses pick up their feet. It makes them pay attention. It makes them use their muscles in their back and also in their stomach, and that'll wear them out more. Also, in the round pen or lunging, if you do a fair amount of turning, that also will tend to wear the horse out faster. So you won't have to round pen them for a half hour. It might just be 15 minutes if you do a lot of turns. Whatever you do, be careful. Don't let anybody pressure you. And just remember, winter riding is not the same as summer riding. Even in California, even though we might not have snow, the weather changes, it's colder, the horses don't get worked as much, and they are more reactive. Even the very calm ones can act up and buck and rear if they're not prepared correctly. Hope that helps. Stay safe